And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PSBTA Technical Solutions webinar series. My name is Martha Ellis, and I am the Executive Director of the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association, or the PSBTA. As an association, our primary objective is to work as a broadband end user advocate for all first responders and service providers. Another role we strive to fill is keeping FirstNet users and prospective users apprised of the cutting-edge changes that continue to take place on our nation's fully designated public safety network. In January of this year, FirstNet, built with AT&T, announced 4 significant program enhancements, which include LMR interoperability for FirstNet push-to-talk, Z-Access deployment, compact rapid deployables, and MegaRange high-power user equipment options. All of these enhancements are exciting in their own right. However, today we are pleased to host our webinar on the MegaRange enhancement exclusive to FirstNet. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. All attendees have automatically been muted to reduce background noise. Any questions should be submitted directly to us through the questions function, which is located at the bottom of the GoToWebinar control panel at the right side of your screen. Questions will be answered at the end of our presentations, and we will attempt to answer as many questions as possible and follow up with those that we don't get to during the live portion of this webinar. We also provide an email address, so if you have additional questions after we conclude today, you can send them to us directly. There are also handouts supporting each guest presentation, which can be found in your GoToWebinar panel as well to the right of your screen. Please remember to download the documents prior to the end of the webinar. The First Responder Network Authority and FirstNet, built with AT&T, work continually to build the most reliable, functional, and accessible network designed for the sole purpose of supporting first responders. MegaRange will revolutionize wireless communications, not only in the urban environment, but also in rural areas where network access can oftentimes be more challenging. We are fortunate today to have some of the foremost experts on MegaRange deployment use and functionality here with us. And with that, I would like to welcome Public Safety Advocate Andy Seybold, Retired Police Chief Harlin McEwen, Vice President of Business Development with Assured Wireless Bob LaRose, and Senior Product Manager with Airgain Larry Greenstein. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for being with us today. And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Andy Seybold to get us started with our webinar. FirstNet's exclusive MegaRange high power user equipment is here. Learn from industry leaders what that means to you.
Thank you, Martha, and hello to everybody here. We're going to go through a few of my slides, and then we're going to turn it over to Chief Harlin McEwen, and then I'll come back with some additional slides. I want to start with the differences between land mobile radio systems, which most of us are used to, and FirstNet, which a lot of us are getting used to. There are some differences that affect how far from the cell site or the network we can communicate back into the network. And high power, or MegaRange, as AT&T has trademarked it, FirstNet, is designed to add distance to band 14. Land mobile radio, the difference is that land mobile radio devices are not controlled by the network. They're standalone. They talk to the network. They talk back to the network. But one of the issues with handhelds, especially, is that a lot of times they can hear the network traffic, but they can't communicate back to it because they're out of range. Now, what happens with cellular devices, FirstNet and other broadband, is that the network controls the device, and the device can only talk back to the network, and the network can only talk to the device when they're both in range of each other. What that means is that what happens sometimes is you can be at the edge of a cell and you're out of range. You can't talk back to the network. So the network basically doesn't know that you're connected to the network at that point, and the phone stops being functional. The advantage to HPUE or MegaRange is that it adds high power, in this case, to vehicular devices and it extends the range. It not only extends the range, but it also increases the data capacity back to the network from the user device. This is a depiction of basically the fact that HPUE in tests has proven to increase band 14 coverage by about 80%, which is a huge increase in coverage. But again, it's also in data capacity and data throughput. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Chief Harlin McEwen, who is going to talk about some of his experiences and some of the experiences in his area. Chief, all yours.
Thanks, Andy. So my function today is to talk a little bit about my personal experience with MegaRange HPUE devices and give you some sense of why I'm so excited about this development in FirstNet. Next slide, Andy. Next slide, Andy. So the power comparisons, just to try to give people a little sense of things, is, and this is a little bit technical, but should be understandable, is power class 3 devices, user equipment, is the standard equipment like you have your smartphone and tablets and things like that. And they are used by FirstNet devices, AT&T devices, Verizon, T-Mobile. They're the standard, that's the standard power. With power class 1, that's only permitted on band class 14, which is the 700 megahertz spectrum that's allocated only for FirstNet users. And you can see the difference in the gain from 23 dBm on the left to 31 dBm on the right. So it gives you a sense of the difference in the power of these devices. Next slide, Andy. So power class 1 high power user equipment, as I said, is exclusive to band 14. A 3GPP industry standard only allows maximum power to 1.25 watts and allows maximum power to 1.25 watts. And the FCC rules have acknowledged that in their rules that on band class 14 only, that additional power can be used. With these HPUE PC1 devices, that transmits 1 watt higher or 6.3 times higher than a regular PC3 device, which is a significant improvement. Below are just some pictures of the 3 current HPUE devices that are available. The Assured Wireless module, the Assured Wireless LTE USB device, and the Airgain Connect device. Next slide. So the benefits should be starting to be a little bit obvious. There's a significant uplink speed improvement at the edge of the FirstNet network. It allows for more powerful devices, 1.25 watts versus 0.2 of a watt. It makes existing cellular coverage more usable for public safety, and first responder devices equipped with antenna modem integrated HPUE, from my experience, provides the highest degree of readiness possible. As it relates to the user experience, it gives a more reliable connection with fewer dropped connections. It gives better rural throughput at the network edge, and it gives better in-building experience, such as in parking structures, tunnels, and bridges. And as AT&T refines the MegaRange HPUE devices, we will expect more improvements to come. Next slide. So for, police, fire, EMS, this is a big benefit. because it overcomes failed connections with increasing connection speeds in rural and low coverage areas. That's where I'm located and what my experience is, and I'll talk about that in just a second. It increases the uplink speeds in normal self-coverage areas. It improves performance in the building shadows, which I talked about, underground parking structures, gives increased mobility capabilities, and it minimizes down tower coverage holes. Next slide. So Bob LaRose will speak in a couple of minutes more about the assured wireless modem, so I won't go into that, but this is a picture of their typical modem. Next slide. Next slide. So this is the integrated antenna modem that's produced and available through Airgain. And again, Larry Greenstein is going to be speaking in more detail about their device that integrates the Assured Wireless 12 module directly into the antenna, which reduces the overall system loss. The coupling loss between the antenna and the modem is eliminated, providing maximum power to the antennas. It increases coverage range, building penetration in parking garages, and throughput. And it's very easy to install. It's just a matter of plugging it in and turning it on. Next slide. So recently, Bang's Ambulance here in Ithaca, New York, where I'm located, participated in an AT&T FirstNet beta test, and they had a Sierra Wireless MG90 router and an Assured Wireless HPUE device. And they did a trip from Hugo Medical in Ithaca, New York, to the Guthrie Robert Packer Hospital in Sayre, Pennsylvania, where they often do transfers of patients to a trauma center there. And you can see the map on the left. And the total miles for the trip was 79.4 miles. When they did that initial test some months back, the non-HPUE FirstNet coverage for the round trip was 48.51 miles. And as you can see, by installing the Assured Wireless HPUE device, it increased the round trip coverage of miles to 71.85 miles, a very significant improvement. Next slide. So in my personal vehicle, I have a Sierra Wireless MG90 router. I have in that router a FirstNet SIM, which is the priority service. And then I have a Verizon SIM as a secondary service. And the way it works is that the router looks for a FirstNet AT&T signal first. And if there are no signals coming in, it reverts to Verizon. And if there isn't any Verizon coverage, then of course it has no coverage. The nice part about the MG90 router is that I have a Wi-Fi bubble. And so anything that I'm receiving with FirstNet or from an HPUE device is extended to that Wi-Fi bubble so that I can use that when out of my vehicle. And I'll talk about that again a little bit later. So FirstNet, I have a FirstNet MegaRange AirConnect AC HPUE antenna modem installed. And what happened here is that I recently did a drive test to compare Bang's Ambulance coverage results and my results over the same route with the Airgain antenna modem. And it showed, as again, I'm going to repeat. So the total round trip miles was 79.40. The FirstNet coverage non-HPU was 48.51 miles. The FirstNet coverage with the Assured Wireless device increased that significantly to 71.85 miles. Then I did the same drive-through with the Airgain HPUE device. And as you can see, it was almost perfect, 78.957 miles. And so there was almost no non-coverage in the whole trip. And I think, you know, to any person, not a scientist, it's obvious the gain and the improvements that you get. I want to just close by going back to the Wi-Fi bubble aspect of this. So if you assume that you have the Airgain device and you're getting almost perfect coverage without hardly any downtime, and you're using the Wi-Fi bubble, that gives you the capability of getting the same coverage, the same power from your Wi-Fi bubble, as long as you're not out of range of the Wi-Fi bubble. And that is, again, that works with any handheld device. Doesn't make any difference what network you're on if you're using Wi-Fi. So that's my presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to Andy Seybold.
Thank you, Chief. So I'm going to talk about the drive tests that I've been doing. I also have a Sierra Wireless MG90 router. Here's a picture of the two antennas that I have mounted on my SUV. The one on the left is the Airgain Connect high power band 14 plus all FirstNet LTE bands. It also has GPS and Wi-Fi. On the right is the antenna that I'm using to feed the MG92 radios that are in it. Again, like Harlin, I have a FirstNet SIM and a Verizon, and the Airgain Centurion is the antenna that I'm using to connect that. Here's a picture of the wireless modem, and to the right is a picture of what is called the injector. This is the device that connects to either the Airgain and Connect antenna or the Assured Wireless device, and it provides power to the antenna. It also provides interface so that when we connect it to any vehicular router, this happens to be the Sierra Wireless one, it connects as a local area network, wide area network connection. So I had my HPUE installed just before the holiday season in December. I've driven a total of 1,685 miles in Arizona and a quick trip up to Las Vegas. The total miles that were available for the HPUE was 1,638.1, and the total FirstNet miles were 1,584.4. So it's a pretty healthy difference. And along the route, the signal strength of the FirstNet and HPUE, the HPUE generally had a better signal to noise ratio than the FirstNet in a lot of areas. This is a test drive where I went up to Payson, Arizona, lots of mountainous driving, and it was a 195-mile round trip. The HPUE gave me 193.9, and you'll see that FirstNet gave me 193. Now, I want to be very clear here. The FirstNet coverage on some of this trip was right at the edge of being usable. It was still enough that the modem connected, but it would have not given me a good enough data rate. With the HPUE device, that changed, and I got a very good solid data rate all the way up. This is another trip that we took from Phoenix down to Ajo, which is near the Mexican border. And you can see that this time the trip was 169 miles. The total HPUE was 168.2, and the total FirstNet was 154.7. So a significant difference. One of the things that Assured Wireless did was they provided me with a different type of injector so I could actually see what bands were being used when we were running tests. And in a final test from Phoenix to Scottsdale and through the Tonto National Forest, you can see here which bands were selected by the HPUE because it has all of the bands in it. So the green says it was connected to band 14 at that time. The red says it was connected to band 2, and the black says it was connected to band 30. As Harlin mentioned, because the Airgain Connect uses a wide area network connection and not antenna cables, it adds additional gain not only on band 14, but on all of the FirstNet public safety bands. This is the trip again with the HPUE, 84.66 miles total miles, and again, FirstNet was 83.05. But again, that was bringing up the coverage a lot better than it had been on FirstNet. This is the same view, but it's a Google Earth view, and I thought it might be interesting. It lists again the bands that were in use during this test from the HPUE, and you can see the different bands. Band 14 predominantly, obviously, but some band 2 and some band 30 also. So my conclusions are at this point that the drive tests make the HPUE makes a substantial difference in coverage. It also increases the data capacity and the data rate even in normal use. And it really does what everybody says it was supposed to do. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned, which I should, is that when FirstNet added MegaRange or HPUE devices, it wasn't as simple as the Assured Wireless building a modem and putting it in service. FirstNet also had to upgrade every band 14 site in the network because the network, if you're familiar with cellular, controls the power for all the devices. So the way this works is when an HPUE device is close to the cell center, the network tells the power level to decrease to the point where it is about the same as a basic device. But as it moves further and further away from the cell, the power comes back up. And when it's at its extreme range, the power is 1.25 watts. So at this point, I'm going to ask Bob LaRose to take over and talk about Assured Wireless and their product.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy and Harlan. Really impressive results. And I'd just like to give a shout out to both of you too for being what I would consider to be a couple of the fathers of FirstNet itself. You guys were active from the very beginning and getting it through Congress and everything. So thanks. And without you guys, we wouldn't be here today. So I'm Bob LaRose, VP of Business Development for Assured Wireless. And just as a little bit of background here to tell you a little bit about our company. Basically, we started informally meeting in 2015, and the driving force behind our company was Tom Bellata, who's here in the middle of the screen. And it was his vision to bring HPUE to the marketplace. He knew about the 3GPP standard. He knew that FirstNet was coming, and he also knew that nobody else was tackling this and the great benefit it would be to first responders. Now, unfortunately, Tom passed away last fall, so he never lived to see his vision fulfilled, but he was the driving force behind the company and HPUE. So we were incorporated in 2016 after becoming members of a technology incubator called EvoNexus. They gave us some desk space and lab space at their facility here in San Diego. And right from the beginning, we were focused on HPUE. Now, in the very beginning, it appeared that FirstNet would be a band 14 only operation. So we focused on band 14 only devices, and we developed some prototype units, went out and tested those on the early builder systems like at LA Ricks and the Houston system. And we found that the field performance of HPUE was equal to what Tom calculated in terms of the calculated range and coverage. When it was announced that AT&T won the FirstNet contract, and I believe that was in conjunction with the IWCE in 2018, suddenly we were caught flat-footed, because one of the great things AT&T did right off the bat was open up all of their bands for first responders on a priority basis. And so we had to go back and redesign our product to include all the AT&T bands. We got AT&T's attention in terms of what HPUE could do to enhance range and coverage, and we formed a strategic partnership in January 2019. And along the way, since we're the pioneers in HPUE, we've developed a portfolio of patents, including all the fundamental HPUE patents. Although I must say that HPUE is an international standard, we implemented the products. Now, anything new like this, of course, has to be extensively tested. And I think either Harlin or Andy alluded to early on is that this is brand new to the marketplace. And for example, the infrastructure suppliers of equipment had never been able to see what an HPUE unit would do on the network before. So we had to go through extensive lab tests, both in Finland and Sweden, the two infrastructure suppliers, as well as with AT&T. And then we did extensive field tests. And I'll say that during the summer and fall, we did what we call beta testing with real world FirstNet customers over all disciplines and all geographical areas and under a number of use cases, and came out with successful results like Harlin and Andy have shown you. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware. So the basic building block for HPUE is our module. As Andy said, it covers all the AT&T bands with standard power, but with high power on band 14. It's a Cat12 modem, and it meets all the international standards. And again, as Andy said, and it's very important, is that we're under the radio access network control. The network tells us how much power to put out and also what band to be put on. Now, I'll use my pointer here. This is the module itself. We have here the LTE basic modem. That's got inside of it the Qualcomm SDX20 chipset, which has been specially modified to provide PC1, Power Class 1 HPUE capabilities when it's talking to the network. Then we have a modified module that brings out band 14 separately. And we have here an ultra linear power amplifier, and that's very important. I'll come back to that in a second, as well as a duplexer and filter. And we need an ultra linear amplifier because the amount of noise that we can generate in the adjacent band, which is LTE band 13, actually has to be less than what a handset would put out. So we're 6 times more power with less noise in the adjacent band. We also happen to be a subharmonic of GPS. So the filtering has to be such that we don't self-jam our GPS onboard receiver. Now, this module is designed for embedding in various products, and has been mentioned before. There's 2 products in the market right now, the AW12 USB device, which I'll be covering in detail, and then this fantastic device from Airgain, the modem antenna, which is a whole new class of product, and we're really pleased that they've come out with that to basically show the full capabilities of HPUE. So here's the AW12, our USB device. It looks very, it is very rugged, and it kind of makes it look bigger than it really is, but it literally can fit in the palm of your hand. We have the connectors on this end. These are all the SMA connectors. This one, for example, is the transmit on the non-band 14 and receive on all bands. We have a special transmit output for band 14. We have the diversity receiver, and then the GPS antenna connection here. On the other side, we have the USB connection, the SIM access, and then a 12-volt DC input. As it mentions here, it's a nominal 12 volts operation, requires up to 25 watts when going full bore, wide temperature range, dust and water protected. And as a USB device, several of the router manufacturers have made special direct interfaces. So it directly interfaces with Digi and Peplink routers, as well as, of course, with mobile data terminals, PCs, and laptops. Now, we recognize that not every router or device has a USB connection. So we designed, as Andy showed you, what we call the Ethernet injector. So this device here takes USB coming from our AW12, then interfaces with other devices on the Ethernet basis. It also has power conditioning and power over Ethernet capability. And I'll talk a little bit about that more later here. So again, it's a USB device. It also has an LED to basically look at the connection status. We've also put together here a nice convenient mounting tray for the AW12 and the Ethernet injector, so they can be side by side and be mounted in the trunk next to an attached router. Now, a little bit about applications here. So the most basic mobile application is with a laptop or mobile data terminal. And what I'll say here is it's important to keep in mind that if this is a regular PC without its own built-in modem, then everything comes through the AW12. But when it comes to mobile data terminals, there are some out there that are a little bit older. They don't have band 14 even in them. So this is a way to quickly get band 14. And also, of course, for any of them, it gives you HPUE capabilities when you attach. So we have the antenna here coming into our device. We have pre-qualified 2 antennas now. One is the Airgain Centurion, and the other one is the Parsec Belgian Shepherd. Now, both of those antennas have been tested to provide the necessary isolation between the band 14 transmit antenna and the other elements. So just finishing up here, we've got a DC operation, USB cable over to the laptop or mobile data terminal, and we do have a Windows driver that can go on those devices to integrate with our device. Now over here we have maybe a more typical type installation where you have an existing mobile router. And again, this can be a mobile router that maybe has a Verizon module in it, or even a standard FirstNet module. And the purpose of adding HPUE, of course, is to extend the range and coverage and provide faster data speed. So again, we have the antenna, we have the AW12, we have the Ethernet injector, which converts the USB connection over to Ethernet to go into the WAN port of the router. And then we have the power controlling system where we can look at the router. If it's still transmitting when the ignition goes off, we stay alive until the router ends its transmission, or we can pick up on the ignition key. So that's a fairly typical unit. We have tested with a number of different routers, and I'll show you a little slide towards the end to show you different models we've tested with. Here's a indoor application. So we can have a paddle antenna, or we can have a panel antenna. And this might be, let's say, for example, a deputy lives out of coverage, standard coverage, where he or she's device won't work out in the rural area. So with HPUE, you can effectively communicate using your device in the home or in office with AC power. Over here, we have a similar situation. This router, for example, could be in the equipment room of a 911 center, where a normal modem would not be able to get out without outside antenna. We can either use an outside antenna or even some cases paddles to provide reliable communications inside the building. And then last but not least on the applications, here's one that we came up across in the beta trials, interestingly enough, where there's a very large new warehouse being built. The router is in a secure container down inside, well inside the building. And the original installation ran coax from that router using the existing internal modems up to the rooftop. And there was a lot of loss in that router, very poor communication. So what we did was we put a non-directional antenna on the roof, and I'll come back to that in a minute because it's very important, with the AW12 and EI mounted just under the roof in a protected area, and then power over Ethernet down to that router 100 feet or more away. And just note here that we need power over Ethernet type 2 to get the necessary power to us. Now, in terms of this omnidirectional antenna, I'll just mention something very interesting with HPUE. And we saw this in our initial trials in LA RICS. And that is that if the cell tower that the unit's normally attached to goes down either through a man-made or natural disaster, HPUE can reach out to adjacent towers which are further away and maintain communications. And of course, that's all under control of the radio access network, but the remote cell tower would detect the presence of this signal and attach it to that remote tower. So we like to think of omnidirectional antennas versus directional antennas as being the best solution for these kind of applications. Very quickly on pricing here, our AW12 HPUE device, the MSRP is $699. The Ethernet ejector is $159, and the installation kit is $59. And these products are available through your FirstNet sales representative, and through our stocking distributor, Get Wireless. And again, here are some of the different routers we've connected to. Some of them have USB connections. Some of them have Ethernet connections, but we are developing application notes for all these. Generally, they're plug and play. There's some fine tuning you can do though to optimize the throughput and the switchover. And last but not least here, I just want to let you know that on our webpage and on Get Wireless's webpage, we have a variety of resources available. We have our quick start guide, very extensive, frequently asked questions, the product briefs, data sheets, the router interface instructions. And then we have a selection matrix here, which if someone wants HPUE, it gives you kind of a step-by-step to analyze which solution, the AW12 or the Airgain Connect, is the best solution for you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Larry to tell you about their exciting new product, the Airgain Connect. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Bob. This is Larry. I'm the product manager, product owner of the Airgain Connect AC HPUE, and we're going to talk a little bit about its capabilities here. A little bit of this will be a bit of a rehash from what Andy and Chief McEwen told you, but let's go ahead and take a look at what's under the hood here. You see on the left that the Airgain Connect AC HPUE is a roof mount device. So it's intended for public safety vehicles as an alternative for just placing an antenna on top of the roof of the vehicle. It also has the modem built inside, which couples the two together so that you don't have any loss over the cables that you typically have between the modem and the antenna. And it works on all of the AT&T bands. And because it eliminates that loss not just on band 14, the HPUE band, the FirstNet band that also supports HPUE, but it also gives you that benefit on all of the bands. It also has Wi-Fi and GPS antennas built in. And so altogether with the 3 LTE, the 2 Wi-Fi, and the GPS, we call it a 6-in-1. Chief McEwen mentioned that the uplink is the weakest link. And this just illustrates that point again. When you lose the uplink, you lose everything. The reason it's the weak link is because mobile devices typically run on a battery. That's not the case, of course, with a police car, but the standards are based on having low power in the uplink with high gain antennas on the base station, but lots of power being driven in the downlink. The key, though, is the uplink is the weakest link. And when you lose it, the downlink is gone also until you reconnect. HPUE focuses on this uplink, increasing the power. That's why you get the extended range. And just to illustrate again what was stated earlier, you get 1.26 watts with HPUE compared to 0.2 watts. That's a 6.3 times increase in power that the modem puts out when it's at the edge of the cellular network. A lot of people we talk to in public safety think, you know, well, HPUE, I have X percentage of my vehicles go in the rural areas, so that's where I need it. But there's a use case for urban, and we saw it recently on Christmas Day, December 25th in Nashville, Tennessee, when there was an explosion. A vehicle was detonated, took out a lot of infrastructure, took down cell sites for multiple days, and temporary cell sites were rolled in. And those temporary cell sites restored service for first responders, but because there was very few of them compared to the number of cell sites down, the vehicles had to connect to distant base stations that they normally wouldn't have to. HPUE is ideal for this. So if you want to be prepared for when the disaster strikes, even in the urban area, HPUE is a great solution. The other urban area use cases are parking structures, tunnels, and areas just that are blocked by buildings. If you have to stop in one of these places where you have no coverage, the extra power of the HPUE will keep you connected far better than a standard modem would do that. So this slide illustrates the loss that you have over standard cable between a router and a modem. A standard cable length that when you buy an antenna to go on the roof of a vehicle is around 15 or 16 feet. And with band 14, FirstNet, at that frequency, you can see here that at this 16-foot point, that you lose another couple of dBs of performance by using a conventional antenna. This is where the AC HPUE differentiates itself from every other solution, because the modem and the antenna are coupled together on the roof of the vehicle. So this will a little better illustrate the point. On the bottom left here, you have a conventional router with a modem inside, and it's operating at full power on a conventional modem, and it has the 2 dB of loss over the cables up to the roof of the vehicle. The degraded power is now 0.126 watts, and it started at 0.2 watts at the modem, and it has dropped off, and it's dropped off a considerable amount over those cables. Up at the top, when you have the modem and the antennas coupled together, you have no loss, and you have the power of HPUE at a maximum of 31 dB. So the difference in power is 0.126 versus 1.26. So the math is real easy. It's no longer a 6.3 times power increase. Now it's a 10 times power increase. And this even further extends the range that you get out to a full 2 times the radius, depending on environmental conditions, of course, but it can be substantially more than 2 times the radius if you have the right conditions. The point is you not only get better coverage, but you also get better throughput. This is how it's installed, just like any other antenna that you put on the roof of a public safety vehicle. But instead of having coax cables carrying a RF signal down to the modem inside of the router, now you have a data cable, so there's no loss. You can put it alongside of your conventional antenna that uses coax cables if you want to have a redundant configuration so that you have a fallback. You would make FirstNet HPUE MegaRange service as your primary, and then you might have an alternative operator as your secondary. In addition to connecting to routers, it can connect to the Ethernet port on the laptop docking station. Not all police cars have routers in them, and this works perfectly well for laptops. In fact, the performance improvement that you're going to get with a docking station using HPUE is dramatically better, because the laptops with modems built in are not nearly as good as routers with modems built in. So you'll see a big improvement in this use case. Some people are concerned about the temperature outdoors where the modem resides on the roof. And it's important to realize that while it gets pretty hot in the desert in the summertime at noon or 1 p.m., we're still only at 125, maybe 130 degrees Fahrenheit on the roof of the vehicle. It comes in white so that it doesn't absorb a lot of the sunlight, not much solar loading on it. And it's designed to operate up to 165, 170 degrees Fahrenheit with no problem. If you put the device on the inside of the vehicle, at the lower right-hand side, where the router typically goes, the device tends to go through much deeper thermal cycles than sitting on the roof. It's a little warmer out here, but it's constant. Inside the vehicle, if you park it for lunch, roll up the windows, turn it off, as you know very, very well, we always hear don't leave your pets inside the vehicle with the windows rolled up. In 20 minutes, it'll be over 150 degrees Fahrenheit inside. If you jump back in that vehicle, turn it on, and go to an emergency call, as soon as you turn it on, that router starts getting hotter. Even though you might be rolling down the windows and turning on the air conditioner, it starts getting hotter because now it's powered up and it's in use. And so it'll rise from that 150 to get to 160 pretty quickly. Whereas the one on the roof is going to stay the same temperature throughout that whole scenario. So the deeper thermal cycles in the vehicle reduce the life of anything that's inside that vehicle, whereas the one on the roof is very steady. So as Bob mentioned, it's a category 12 modem, which means theoretical maximums are up here, 600 megabits per second in the downlink, 150 megabits per second in the uplink. We actually see in our tests sometimes 60, 70, 80 megabits per second in the uplink, way, way more throughput than you're typically going to need. And all the bands are supported, and the performance on all the bands are improved because of the design of the product. And it's for primary and extended primary users. Right now, it's not available to enterprises because of restrictions from AT&T. And FirstNet MegaRange, again, it operates on band 14 MegaRange and all other bands. The key to improving performance is it eliminates those coax cables between the router and the antenna on the roof. That increases the coverage, throughput, and penetration. And it's very simple to install. There's nothing to configure. You just plug it in and turn it on, and it connects directly to the router or to the laptop. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Martha Ellis to handle the next portion of our webinar.
Thank you guys so much. I mean, really, this is so exciting where we're headed with this, and clearly you have all contributed significantly to this advancement. So thank you, and thank you for being with us today. So we have a few minutes for some Q&A, and again, thank you to our attendees. The questions have been robust, and I'm going to do my best to get through some of these, but please know that we will follow up with these if we're not able to get to you. And while we're doing this, don't forget to download the handouts that are in the GoToWebinar panel, because all of this information is also accessible for you there to download and keep. All right, Andy, we are going to start with you. Can you tell us how does a person choose between Assured Wireless and Airgain devices, and what are the major differences from your perspective as a third party?
Well, first of all, it depends on where the system is needed. The Assured Wireless module is much more flexible when it comes to other antennas, and as Bob said, in buildings and as a secondary backup for dispatch centers. There are some vehicles that already have antennas on the roof, and I would say that if they already have antennas for a router, the Assured Wireless device is probably good for them. The AirConnect is for mobile a little bit better because of the fact that there's no loss for cable by the cables, and My experience has only been with the Air Connect, but as Harlin showed with the Assured Wireless, they both work, and they both work very, very well.
Okay, great. So we also had a question regarding the devices that had more than one SIM card in them, as in the black SIM and maybe a Verizon SIM. Did you have any experiences where it switched over to another network? And if you were able to measure the strength of FirstNet toe to toe with the other networks, were there any measurable results there, Andy?
Okay, so in all of my trips, the router never switched to Verizon. It always stayed on AT&T. That doesn't mean it always stayed on band 14. It stayed on one of the FirstNet spectrum LTE bands, and the HPUE stayed on it more often. So
Okay.
I would have to say, now that's just in what I've driven in Arizona. The HPUE, when it fell off, went to FirstNet, and I never saw it go to Verizon.
Okay, great. And then Chief McEwen, did you have a similar experience or any input that you could put on the comparison and contrast between the strengths of the networks, leveraging the HPUE?
Yeah, in my area, I've been testing before. I had HPUE for a couple of years with the Sierra Wireless MG90. And to be very honest, the variety quite often in the couple of years ago, quite often the router would drop off to the Verizon because of lack of FirstNet coverage. But I have to tell you that today, 2 years later, the AT&T coverage has tremendously increased. They're installing band 14 and other cellular towers rapidly, as included in their contract. And so it's very rare now that I see that happen.
And how does that HPUE, or the MegaRange, I guess is what we should be calling it, how does that MegaRange input output compare to our standard commercial network at this point then? Specifically, did you do side by side with Verizon or T-Mobile or any of those? Or
Yes.
Okay, so can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, it becomes more engineering talk than my position when you get into this, but I'll give you my observation. So what happens is that right now in my area, which I've been drive testing, most of the AT&T FirstNet coverage on all the bands equals the Verizon coverage. The difference is that you get a stronger, the coverage is different. In other words, getting a signal and the amount of throughput you're getting, Andy or somebody else will have to explain that, is different. And I'm getting better throughput with the FirstNet than I am with Verizon.
Okay, perfect. I was just curious about that. That question did come in. So let's talk a little bit about the process. And Harlin, you might be the best one to answer this. It seems pretty unique that we've got this MegaRange HPUE capabilities solely on the FirstNet network. Can you explain briefly how the FCC came to include FirstNet HPUE in their rules?
Well, we were talking about the futuristic looking at broadband communications way back in the probably the mid 2000s. And we were looking at the fact that we needed additional power to talk unit to unit than a typical 0.2 of a watt power. That was what we were originally thinking, was that we wanted a device that had the capability to switch to higher power when we were talking unit to unit, as opposed to trying to reach through the network, off network, in other words. This, of course, is quite different than that original thinking. We were talking in those days about 3 watts of power, which had been closer to the 5 watts in land mobile portables. But of course, this is quite a different concept. But it really started with that discussion.
Okay. And do you ever see this exclusivity changing, or do you see this staying pretty much with our nationwide public safety network, FirstNet, going on into the future?
Yeah. First of all, the FCC rules don't allow anybody other than band 14 qualified users to use 1.25 watts. So the FCC would have to change their rules, and any network that were to do something like that would have to build into the network, like Andy and Larry and Bob have explained. The network controls all of this, and the network has to be modified to do it nationwide.
Okay, so this is not a flip of a switch type of a situation. There clearly is a lot involved. So we can expect to have this exclusivity for quite a while going into the future. Great to know. Okay, Larry, we've had several questions coming in about the cost, and I think Bob mentioned the cost for their actual hardware. Does the cost per month to use HPUE on FirstNet versus other FirstNet devices, does that change, or what do you know about that?
Yeah, great question, Martha. Yeah, AT&T has priced HPUE service at $40 a month with unlimited data, so it's a very affordable solution.
Okay, fantastic. And another question that came in, do you know of any handheld devices at this point that can leverage HPUE, or is this solely for the modem type and vehicle-based and building-based devices?
Yeah, Martha,
Yeah,
I'll take that.
It's
Oh,
the
sorry.
latter, but go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I was just going to say is that there are a number of challenges, whether it's the amount of battery consumption or the heat or the SAR, the radiation. But we're looking at all of those areas, and we hope that in the not too distant future that those are overcome.
Okay, great. So
Interject.
not available now, but will be coming
Right.
soon.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Let me
And then
interject, Martha,
go ahead, Harlan.
to say that at the moment, the benefit that you can get for handheld devices is using Wi-Fi bubbles coming from the routers that are getting this increased signal. So it is a big benefit.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. Larry, one last question for you, and it really could go to either you or Bob, but do you have an answer? Somebody was asking if it's possible to become a beta or a field tester for this technology in the EMS capacity. Do either of you know?
AT&T has a trial program. So if you talk to your FirstNet sales representative, they have a pool of both of these devices that they will use to work with you to do an evaluation.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. And then Bob, just speaking a little bit to the different users on FirstNet, whether it's a primary or extended primary, does the HPUE MegaRange, is that also available for our extended primary users as well?
Absolutely. And in fact, some of the beta customers that we worked with were extended primary. And that includes a very broad group of people that support first responders, everything from your utilities, for example, people that are involved in moving things around the country, things such as vaccines and whatever. There's a whole pool of extended first responders. And yes, they are eligible for HPUE service.
Would you have a resource by any chance where we might direct people if they're interested in applying to be part of that program?
Again, it's the FirstNet salespeople that went to the FirstNet webpage, firstnet.com. You can therefore enter a questionnaire and have someone contact you.
All right, outstanding. There are several other questions in the queue, and I'm really sorry for those of you that may have not heard the answer to theirs answered, but we will follow up with you. Again, thank you so much, gentlemen. This probably could have been a 2-hour webinar pretty easily, but I do appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and I indeed hope that everybody who attended today felt that it was time well spent. We deeply appreciate your participation. And again, we are the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association, and we want to be your advocate for all aspects of FirstNet utilization. By being here today, you help support our efforts to continually bring you cutting-edge information about FirstNet, the nation's only fully dedicated mission-critical responder network. and all aspects of the ecosystem as well that is built purposefully for your advantage. If you'd like to visit our webpage, we are at thepsbta.org. You'll find more information there about our association, upcoming webinars, and recordings of all of our previous webinars, which is developing into quite a library of information for you. In appreciation for your attendance today, you will receive a membership code to free membership for the PSBTA for 2021 that will come in a post-webinar email. And please let your friends know and peers that by attending one of our webinars, it does include a free membership to the PSBTA, which is a $75 value as a gift from us as we all try to navigate our new and ever-changing world. Finally, consider visiting All Things FirstNet as well. Their team continually compiles valuable information on FirstNet and the developing ecosystem. This concludes our webinar. FirstNet exclusive MegaRange high power user equipment is here. Learn from industry leaders what that means to you. Again, thank you for your time and be safe out there.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.